Let's see here. Got it going. And action! Hey, my name is Dan. Welcome to my shop. This is where I build, repair, and, well, I don't fly my airplanes in here. Yeah, okay, that's really stupid. Let's try it again. And action! Hey, welcome back to the shop. My name is Dan, and this is where I build, maintain, and sometimes repair my model airplanes. Today, I want to walk through something that is, it's just one of the things we have to deal with when you start having, a few planes under your belt, and that is where to store them. And it's kind of hard because you don't want to have them in places where they're going to get what we call hangar rash. That's dents and scratches and holes poked in them just from being in your shop and in an inconvenient location. And so today, what I want to show you is if you have a ceiling in your shop, I'm going to show you a way that you could put these up against the ceiling of your shop as a way to store them when they're not in use. So stick around. We're going to build us something really cool here. Hey, welcome back to the shop. It's really good to see you here again. Like I was saying, back to the shop here. Let me first apologize. I got a few hot spots on the table over here. I've got a skylight over here, and it adds a great amount of daylight in here, which is nice. It's really nice for building during the daytime, but it does sometimes put, when the sun is in the sky in a certain position, some hot spots on here. I suppose if I was a real videography nut, I would figure out a way to block out the skylight, but I kind of like it, so I'm just going to leave it. And I'll just tell you, there's going to be places here where maybe there's some overexposure, and I hope you can see everything. But what I have here is all the parts that I use to make racks that I hang up from the ceiling. And this is basically the parts that you need to build this come from a 10-foot pipe. I use schedule 41-inch pipe. So these are schedule 41-inch pipes. I've already pre-cut these to all the sizes that I need, and let's kind of talk about that for a little bit. This really is going to depend on what kind of planes you build, the weight of them, and how much strength you need to have in something, and also where it's going to hang down from the ceiling. So in my case, I've got these racks up here, and I have found over time, just experimenting with them, that about 20 to 22 inches from the ceiling, that's basically using the ceiling as your start point, drop down about 22 inches, and you have about the perfect amount, at least for my kind of planes. Now, my planes are all what they call entry-level giant scale, meaning that most of mine have like an 80-inch wingspan to them, 80 to 100, something in there. And so the fuselages are what I hang up from the ceiling. I use wing racks like these over here and the ones behind me to put up the wings. But for the fuselages, there's lots of ways people store them. People will store them stacking them against the wall with the nose down in the ground. That's a way to do it. They will hang them from the walls. I don't have a whole lot of wall space in here for that kind of stuff. So I chose to go with ceiling. And so by hanging them down 20 inches from the ceiling, 22 inches from the ceiling, tends to give them enough room so that they can get the tails of them within inches of the ceiling still, but it gives room so I can, in order to get them off these racks, you have to be able to lift them up a little to get them off of them and then come down with it. So these are the parts that I have pre-cut. I started off with a 10-foot section of the schedule 41-inch pipe. And so I got all of the pieces I need to make the rack, plus a little bit left over. And this could come in handy. I'll show you something else coming up here later where you might need to use this piece as well. And I'll show you it's a modification that I made to one of the racks for a little bit heavier airplane. Time out. Whistle, whistle. Thank you. Hey, just wanted to let you know I'm editing this video right now, and I missed a detail that I want to share with you before you start building these or hanging these things up. Make sure of your ceiling composition. So for instance, in my shop, I've got that MDF wafer board as the ceiling in the shop. And so I can really drill the screws into that anywhere I want to because it will support the weight. But if you got like drywall or lath and plaster or something like that, you might want to check. In fact, might nothing. Make sure you find out where the joists are and the studs so that you can attach into those, because you don't want to be drilling and putting the full weight of the rack on just gypsum. You know, it will eventually wear out, and it's not meant to hold that kind of weight, and it will fall to the floor at some point. I don't want that to happen to you. And I know this is kind of common sense, but you know, I still want you to check that out before you get going. So anyways, that's it. Play on. Thanks again. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. These are the pieces. So I've got 4 of these. These act as the crossbars that the actual plane is going to sit on. Now, truth be told, I started this all from a design that was readily available many years ago. And even today, to some point, I can't find them today in the same thing. But what it is a lumber rack. And, you know, I'll show you, here's a clip of a lumber rack on the original one that I've got. It's over in the corner over here. And I basically pulled all my measurements off it. The lumber rack is meant to hold 50 pounds of weight from the ceiling. And it was great. I think I bought it, the 2 pieces of it, the front and the back rack, for like 15 bucks way back in the day. Now I can't find them. I don't know if they're not making them. They are making something that's similar, but it's much shorter to the ceiling. It's only got like a 11-inch span from the ceiling down, and I can't get any of my planes in that because the tails stick up higher. The fin would hit the ceiling too early. So the only way that I figured was a better plan for me was to, let's back up for just a second. I did find one of them at a local hardware store. And the key thing is it's got to have the expandable thing so it could drop down lower. And these metal ones that I have are able to drop down to 22 inches. So that's exactly what I needed. I found one of them in the local hardware store. They wanted $25 for one, not the 2 set, one. And so I looked on Amazon, and there's lots of them available there, but they're the ones that are fixed at 11 inches. And it doesn't work for me. So I decided to go ahead and do what I like to do. I decided to make my own inventing of the same thing. I took all the measurements off those racks, and this is what I've come up with. So these are the uprights. Now I've got a slanted ceiling in my shop, and that's why one of them's taller than the other. So one of them will be at the front, at the top of the slant, and the other one, the smaller one, will be at the back. And that will hold it level with that slant that's in my ceiling. So you might not have to do that. You might have a straight on, just flat ceiling in your shop, and you can go ahead and just make them the same length. And that would be, it gets rid of some mathematical problems, I guess. And then the base of them well, let's see here. Each one of them, first of all, has a T on it. And I'll just go ahead and shortly assemble one here. Only take a couple seconds. And then I put the end caps on them. Okay, so this is the basis of it. So what happens is this part here will be put up to the ceiling. In fact, we're going to use another T up there. And it'll go like that. And we're going to modify this T. I'll show you that. We'll be doing that with the bandsaw to make the top of it more flat and give it more surface area to grab to the ceiling. But anyways, that's the basis of what these things look like. The plane will sit on there, and you put them up there nice and high, and then you just kind of take them down when you're ready to go flying, and you put them back up there. And 1 inch is fairly stout. It kind of bends and adjusts a little bit with the airplane weight, but I find it to be something that I think is going to work just fine over time. I will use cement. You don't have to, but I like using cement because it makes a pretty strong bond, and that's this PVC cement right here. And so anyways, the basic operation of getting everything started is, sorry if that's really loud. The basic operation is to go ahead and get all these pipes cut to the right size for what you need to have. And then, you know, they assemble fairly quickly. You just put the little bit of the glue in there and stick it in there. Or like I said, you don't have to if you don't want to. But then you're going to have to rely on, this is the secondary way that, this is the insurance policy for me, but if you don't want to use glue, this is going to be a primary way. At every one of the joints where the pipe is coming into the T's, you're going to want to use a screw. So I just drill a hole down through there and sink one of these. These are number 8 3/4 wood screw, and just put it down in there so it's passing through the inner pipe as well as the outer pipe, and that'll give you a lot of strength. And so that's a way that you could adhere it if you don't want to use the cement. This is very strong smelling stuff, but it is the best exact cement for PVC because it actually creates a weld where it's actually welding the pipe together. It'll melt a little bit of it as it's doing the joint. All right, so the first step is we got to get these all cut, and so you basically use a tool like this one here. I mean, you could use a saw, you could use a hacksaw. I really like this device here. This is from Husky, comes from Home Depot, but I'm sure there's probably other brands with that. But it's a basic ratcheting design. It's really cool. You just slowly ratchet it down there. It adds a lot of torque and strength into that. And if your blade is nice and sharp, it will go right through there and make a perfectly straight line. And you can line it up. So if you have marks on the pipes, they'll go right onto that, and you can just push right through it at that exact mark. So that's a great device. First step is to get everything cut out. Then the next step is to go ahead and start joining them up. And like I just did that one right there, it's that easy. You're just simply making sure that you're getting the T's at the top and the bottom lined up perfectly. So if this is a pipe here, you got to make sure that that T up there is lined up perfectly with this one. And even that, you know, you don't even need to do that. You can have the top pipe be completely 90 degrees different, and this is still going to work well for you. I just think that having it at the same lateral position as the lower one that's actually bearing the weight of the airplane on it is probably a good idea. So the next thing we got to do mechanically, I'm going to modify 2 of the T's that are going to be the ones that hold it to the ceiling. They've got to be changed up a little bit. So we're going to go to the bandsaw now, and we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, can you see me? Oh, all right. So anyways, I'm over here by the bandsaw now, and I'm going to be cutting what you do for the ones that are going to be going to the ceiling. I take and I make a line straight across there. And so if your ceiling is flat, in other words, you don't have a slant in it, then all you need to do is set it on your bandsaw and just go ahead and shove it right on through on that line. Just stick to it, and you'll be fine. Now I'm going to warn you, this thing, cutting PVC on a bandsaw is going to gum up the blade a little bit because you are actually going to be melting the plastic slightly, and it kind of sticks to the blade and makes it run a little bit noisier. And the other problem I got is this blade's a little bit old. It's not as sharp as a brand new one is, but for doing this kind of work, I think it's going to be fine. I'll be replacing the blade here not too long from now, but I think it's got at least enough to make a couple more of these for me before I do it. But I just want to let you know because it does kind of gum up on the other side of the blade here. And, you know, maybe you could figure out a way to like side slip a file to grind all that stuff off to elongate your blade's use. But anyways, for me, I've got a different situation. So yeah, I'm going to be cutting this line that's here, but I've got that slanted ceiling. And with a little bit of experimentation, what I have figured out is that by taking and putting a 1/8 inch piece of plywood underneath the stem off of here, it will give me roughly the proper angle so that when it's stuck to that slanted ceiling, it's going to make it so that the drop downs, the main parts that are hanging down are going to be pretty, perpendicular to the floor. Otherwise, they're going to lean. If I did a flat one, they're going to lean with the slant, and it looks dumb, and it's kind of missing the purpose. I want it to hang straight down. That way it'll be stronger. It won't be putting any side stress on the joint. So that's why I got to do it. And so let's go ahead and get one done here. It's going to be kind of noisy, so if you don't hear me yammering, it's because it's noisy. Here we go. I had a little bit of a screw up there where what happened was I I just moved this saw recently, and the blade guard here that controls the height was not quite set right. So anyways, that's what we got for the finished product now. So this slant right here is going to match up to the ceiling so that when it's like that, the higher end goes to the front, and it'll make the pipe hang straight down. So that's done. Got one more to go, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next part. So we're back at the table, got the finished parts here. The second one came out much better than the first one. That little hiccup where I had to raise the guard kind of made me skip over this a little bit. But regardless, these don't have to be absolutely perfect because they're going to be held up against the ceiling with a couple of deck screws. And the final shape of it is going to be resting up against the ceiling, and it will tend to even out. It'll be okay. Not a big deal. But like I said, the second one had nothing wrong with it. It is perfect for that. But anyways, it's good to have that because it's going to give a little more support to it as it's sitting up there, instead of it all just having the entire pressure point just being along the top of one of these. So we're ready to go ahead and assemble. Now, if you've ever worked with cement before from PVC, it is very voxious, I guess is the best word I can come up with. It will make you high. So be very careful when you're using this. I mean, this is some strong stuff. So the way we use this is we're going to go, let me see here. I've got, these are the two straight up and downs, uprights, I guess is what you would call them, although they're downrights. And so we need to make two of those right now. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back after we get after I get the basic parts set on. We'll put on the extensions next, and then we'll talk about what to do with these guys. And once again, before I go and speed this up because it's pretty boring to watch, let me just show you how to do application of the glue onto one of them right now. I've got this cool little brush that's in the can. So what you want to do is just kind of go around the outside of this one here. A lot of people will coat both sides. I think that's overkill, so I'm not going to do it. And what you do is you work the pipe down in there. You want to get it fully seated. And you can see there's a little bit of run over that's gone there. I should get a rag and clean that up. But that's kind of the way it's done. So I'll go ahead and continue to work on the other ones. And a mess. Well, so clean the dirt off the table. Let me show you an alternate method. Instead of going around the outside diameter of the pipe, if you go around the inside diameter of the T, it makes it a lot neater. So just a tip for you there. One more tip here. These cross pieces here that are going to have the airplane rest on them are 13 inches. So I've found that that tends to work as a really good size with the racks as far as being able to hold the airplane on it. And then what you do is while these things are stacked one in front of the other, typically what happens on the fuselage is I will put a nose one way and the tail of the other airplane next to it will be on the same side as the nose. So I'll have one going forward and one going the other way on these racks, and that makes it so that if you try to stack them both going the same direction, what happens is the stabilizers and the fins will kind of interfere with each other. So if you do it that way as an alternating thing, it'll make it so that you can work with that a lot easier. The other thing that I have found is that the distance between these things, the magical number, is if you have, like if you've got a row of them on the ceiling, the magical number between this center of one rack and the next one over is 44 inches. That seems to be the magic number. It gives you a lot of room to work between, roughly about 16 inches of room working between when these are at 13 inches. And it gives you the ability to get them in and out without clanging them into each other. They're not, you've got to put some space between these if you're going to stack several of them. If you're only putting one up, no worries. Hurry this one. And cut. That's the front. Whoa! All right, perfect. For the next step, we're going to do the insurance feeling, the good feel about making sure that you are securing everything the way you want to have it. The glue is good, but you know, if you don't want to use glue, there is another method. I just happen to use both. So what we're going to be doing is, these are number 8 by 3/4 inch. And what you want to do is you want to put these, I'm going to start with a pilot hole with the drill. There's going to be one here. Now I do this with a kind of a way, because I've got the slanted ceiling again, this one here is set to be, these holes that I'm drilling are on the inside. So this helps me when I'm putting it up there to keep that in mind, that the holes will go to the inside of the thing. So that way I don't have to think about it too much. So because mine are directional, if yours are straight, really doesn't matter the way you do this. I just do this for myself to make sure I don't make too many mistakes. So what you do is you take and you put a pilot hole through it. I like putting a pilot hole because trying to just drill through PVC with the impact drill doesn't work that great. So I like having a pilot hole for it to feed into, and it's a very easy deal. Okay, so that's in there now. If you could see down this tube, that screw is sunk through the joint, sunk through both this piece here and this piece here. That's not going to come apart now. And you don't have to worry about it. It's like some people have shops that aren't climate controlled. So this is going to go through a heating and a cooling cycle depending on where you live. You don't have to worry about that cement failing over time, because that metal screw is going to really hold it in there. And like I said, if you don't want to use the glue because it is a very volatile smelling kind of thing, you can just simply I maybe would put one screw here and maybe one to here, and you know, hopefully they don't touch in the middle. But anyways, you could do it that way and just completely forget about using the glue. But for me, this is just as easy, so I'm going to do this. All right, and then the final step is right here. We're going to put these caps on the ends. Now, I'm not going to glue these on, and I'll show you why in a minute here. But originally, when I started building these, instead of putting a cap on the end, I would put an elbow. It just seemed logical because that way, if something were to slide toward the end here, it won't go off. But what I found is by putting an elbow on there, you have to be able to raise the tail up off of this rack a certain amount. And sometimes that 90-degree that fits on here for that turn that I was putting on the end, it goes beyond where I want it. And so I'd be banging the tail on the ceiling or doing some kind of funky dance to try to make it come off okay. This will work just as well as far as keeping stuff from rolling off the end. It's got a nice little lip there. So you could put them on. You put them on. I don't use cement for this one. I used to, but I stopped doing it because I found another thing. And once again, I'm going to tell you what it is here. But let me finish putting these things on and we'll go to it. And we're back at the bench again here. We're going to do the finishing up of the preparation for these before we hang them. And let's see here. Last thing I want to do is a little more pre-drilling. And that's going to go into these here. This is where it's going to go into the ceiling, so we're going to be putting some deck screws into it. And then what I do is I'll take the deck screw. These are 2.5-inch deck screws. I think these are just typical drywall deck screws. And what I'll do is I'll set them into this. I mean, this just makes it easier to install. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and set them into there. And I will go ahead and punch them through so that the point that's down in here is going to get itself, so when I put it up against the ceiling, the point will actually be sticking into the wood and I won't waste time trying to get through this air gap and then go. It makes it so much quicker for doing it. So a little bit of preparation ahead of time on this makes it easier to finally do it. Perfect. And go ahead and get the other one done. Okay, so these are ready to be installed. My next step is going to be to go ahead and hop up there on a ladder, and I want to figure out the 44 inches. Remember I was saying that I found the optimal for working distance between a set of racks. I'll go up there and mark on the ceiling 44 inches from the center of the last one, and that's going to be where this one gets centered up, and we'll put that in place. And then get the second one done. Same thing, 44 inches further down. I forget what the distance is that I figured in between there. You know what? I got it written down here somewhere. The distance from the front to the back that works best for my planes is 31 inches. That just happens to work better for most of my fuselages. They're somewhere between 60 and 70 inches long. Like I said, the majority of the wingspans are anywhere from 80 to 100 inches long. So that makes the 31 inches is a good enough distance between the front end of it and the back end of it in order to house that fuselage. It's going to be 60 to 70, somewhere in that area for length. So I'll go ahead and get those plotted, and I'll go ahead and get them put up, and we'll take a look again. And that should be just about it. Okay, so like I was showing you before, when you finish up, you're going to have, you know, after you cut all those out of there, I have a piece about this big. This one ends up being, I think it's 24 inches is what this ends up after I did all those other cuts. So you got a 24-inch piece left over. let me show you exactly where this comes in handy. So let's start off. This is what the finished stand that I'm making right now, or excuse me, rack that I'm making right now is going to look like. And you can see right here, I've got the ends on it, and so that's what it looks like in a normal position. Now let me step back here and show you the next one. This is my P47. This is Bonnie. And she's a little bit of a heavy girl. And I was really concerned when I was starting to put these guys up here that that this was going to be way too much weight for these things. I mean, it's not, but it just doesn't look right. And the other problem is Bonnie is round. You can see right here, the whole underside. This is a round airplane. And the problem I got with a round airplane is, you know, it's sitting on a flat thing. Most of these that are along here, they're all flat bottoms. And so they sit on top of that rail perfectly, no problem. But in this case, I wanted to have one so that I could put this P47 up there. So for the heavy girl, the solution is we want to do this. We want to put this one here. This is an elbow, 90 degree, and it runs a second one up there. So you can see right next to it, that's the one that's in the middle. And this one here is the second brace that I put in there. And that pipe I've actually got more than enough to do that if I need to. But you don't need to do this on every rack typically. But I wanted to do it on this one. It's a round airplane. And so you can see I've taken and put this pool noodle here too. That will keep it from rolling off and also kind of keeps it from making a hard dent in the bottom because, you know, this is balsa covered by fiberglass, but after a while, it's going to give me some issues as far as denting from that hard plastic. You can see the back one is just a normal. And so the trick is when you go to load it up there, you load the front end up first into that cradle and then just loop it back onto the back one back here. And so that is kind of how I solved that problem. I guess not kind of, that's how I solved the problem. It works pretty well. So anyways, if you've got some heavier planes and round planes at that, this is a way to go. And that's what you can use that extra piece for. So I hope you had fun today, and I hope you maybe learned something, and I hope I helped you a little bit about how to store your airplanes. You know, this is yet another way that you can store your airplanes. But the important thing is if you've got more than one airplane, you've got some other ones that you're building, or there's going to be other projects coming down the road, it's important to get those things in a safe place where you're not going to be dinging them or accidentally dropping stuff on them and stuff like that. You want to kind of get them up and out of the way so you got your work tables nice and cleared off and ready to roll. And this is just one way that I've found, if you have the capability of doing it with your ceiling in your shop, this is a great way to get those planes up there and out of the way. So anyways, until next time, what can I say? Get out there and get some building done. See you next time.